Hello class 9th students, this is Praful Sharma, biology lecturer, TUP School Amet. Here in today's session, I am going to provide you with the summary of chapter 6, tissues from NCERT book. From the last chapter, we recall that all living organisms are made up of cells. In unicellular organisms, a single cell performs all basic functions, while in multicellular organisms, there are millions of cells. Most of these cells are specialized to carry out their functions. Each specialized function is taken up by a different group of cells. Since these cells carry out only a particular function, they do it very efficiently and very effectively. So, multicellular organisms shows division of labor. Cells specializing in one function are often grouped together in the body. This means that a particular function is carried out by a cluster of cells at a definite place in the body. This cluster of cells, called a tissue, is arranged and designed so as to give the highest possible efficiency of function. A group of cells that are similar in structure and work together to achieve a particular function forms a tissue. We find a unique difference between animals and plants is in the pattern of growth. The growth in plants is limited to certain regions, while this is not so as in animals. There are some tissues in plants that divide throughout their life. These tissues are localized in certain regions. Based on the dividing capacity of the tissues, various plant tissues can be classified as growing or meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Cell growth in animal is more uniform, so there is no such demarcation of dividing and non-dividing regions in animals. Let's talk about the first term, meristematic tissue. The growth of plants occurs only in certain specific regions. This is because the dividing tissue, also known as meristematic tissue, is located only at these points. Depending on the region where they are present, meristematic tissues are classified as apical, lateral, and intercalary. Apical meristem is present at the growing tips of stems and roots and increases the length of the stem and the root. The girth of the stem or root increases due to lateral meristem. Intercalary meristem, seen in some plants, is located near the node. Cells of meristematic tissue are very active. They have dense cytoplasm, thin cellulose wall, and prominent nuclei. They lack vacuoles and are able to divide continuously. The next we have permanent tissue. What happens to the cells formed by meristematic tissue? They take up a specific role and lose the ability to divide. As a result, they form a permanent tissue. This process of taking up a permanent shape, size, and function is called differentiation. Differentiation leads to the development of various types of permanent tissues. Let's talk about the types of permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissue. A few layers of cells beneath the epidermis, that is the skin of the plant, are generally simple permanent tissue. Parenchyma is the most common simple permanent tissue. It consists of relatively unspecialized cells within cell walls. They are living cells. They are usually loosely arranged. Thus, large spaces between cells, which we call as intercellular spaces, are found in these tissues. This tissue generally stores food. In some situation, it contains chlorophyll and performs photosynthesis. In that case, it is called as chlorenchyma. In aquatic plants, large air cavities are present in parenchyma to help them float. Such a parenchyma is called aerenchyma. The flexibility in plants is due to another permanent tissue, collenchyma. It allows bending of various parts of a plant like tendrils and stems of climbers without breaking. It also provides mechanical support. We can find this tissue in leaf stalks below the epidermis. The cells of this tissue are living, elongated, and irregularly thickened at the corners due to deposition of pectic and hemicellulose substance. There is very little intercellular space. It is collenchyma. Yet another type of permanent tissue is sclerenchyma. It is the tissue which makes the plant hard and tough. We have seen the husk of a coconut. It is made up of sclerenchymatous tissue. The cells of this tissue are dead. They are long and narrow, as the walls are thickened due to lignin deposition. Often these walls are so thick that there is no internal space inside the cell. This tissue is present in stems, around the vascular bundles, in the veins of leaves, and in the hard covering of seeds and nuts. It provides strength to the plant parts. Let's move on to the second type of permanent tissue, complex permanent tissue. The different types of tissues we have discussed until now are all made up of one type of cells which look like each other. Such tissues are simple permanent tissue. Yet another type of permanent tissue is complex tissue. These are made of more than one type of cells. All these cells coordinate to perform a common function. Xylem and phloem are examples of such complex tissues. They are both conducting tissues and constitute a vascular bundle. Vascular tissue is a distinctive feature of the complex plants, one that has made possible their survival in the terrestrial environment. Xylem consists of tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. Tracheids and vessels have thick walls, and many are dead cells when mature. Tracheids and vessels are tubular structures. This allows them to transport water and minerals vertically upward. The parenchyma stores food, and the xylem fibers are mainly supportive in function. Phloem is made up of 4 types of cells. These are sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers, and phloem parenchyma. Sieve tubes are tubular cells with perforated walls. Phloem transports food from leaves to other parts of the plant. Except phloem fiber, other phloem cells are living cells. Let's move on to the next part of this chapter, animal tissues. When we breathe, we can actually feel the movement of our chest. How do these body parts move? For this, we have specialized cells called muscle cells. The contraction and relaxation of the cell results in movement. During breathing, we inhale oxygen. Where does this oxygen go? It is absorbed in the lungs, and this is then transported to all the body cells through blood. Why would cells need oxygen? The function of mitochondria we studied earlier provide a clue to this caution. Blood flows and carries various substances from one part of the body to other. Blood and muscle are both examples of tissues found in our body. On the basis of the function they perform, we can think of different types of animal tissues such as epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. Let's start with the first, epithelial tissue. The covering or protective tissues in the animal body are epithelial tissues. Epithelial covers most organs and cavities within the body. It also forms a barrier to keep different body systems separate. The skin, the lining of the mouth, the lining of blood vessels, lung alveoli, and kidney tubules are all made up of epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue cells are tightly packed and form a continuous sheet. They have only a small amount of cementing material between them and almost no intercellular spaces. Obviously, anything entering or leaving the body must cross at least one layer of epithelium. As a result, the permeability of the cells of various epithelia play an important role in regulating the exchange of material between the body and the external environment. Different epithelia show different structures that correlate with their unique functions. For example, in cells lining blood vessels or lung alveoli, where transportation of substance occurs, there is a simple flat kind of epithelium is found named as simple squamous epithelium. Here, squama means scale. Simple squamous epithelial cells are extremely thin and flat and form a delicate lining. The esophagus and the lining of mouth are also covered with squamous epithelium. The skin which protects the body is also made up of squamous epithelium. Skin epithelial cells are arranged in many layers to prevent wear and tear. Since they are arranged in a pattern of layers, the epithelium is called stratified squamous epithelium. Where absorption and secretion occurs, as in the inner lining of intestine, tall epithelial cells are present. These columnar epithelium facilitates movement across the epithelial barrier. In the respiratory tract, the columnar epithelial tissue also has cilia, which are hair-like projections on the surface of epithelial cells. Cuboidal epithelium with cube-shaped cells forms the lining of kidney tubules and ducts of salivary glands, where it provides mechanical support. Epithelial cells often acquire additional specialization as gland cells. Here, the next is muscular tissue. Muscular tissue consists of elongated cells, also called muscle fibers. This tissue is responsible for movement in our body. Muscle contains special proteins called contractile proteins, which contract and relax to cause movement. We can move some muscles by conscious will. Muscles present in our limbs move when we want them to and stop when we so decide. Such muscles are called voluntary muscles. These muscles are also called skeletal muscles as they are mostly attached to bones and helps in body movement. Under the microscope, these muscles show alternate light and dark bands or striations when stained appropriately. As a result, they are also called striated muscles. The cells of these tissues are long, cylindrical, unbranched, and multinucleated. The movement of food in the alimentary canal or the contraction and relaxation of blood vessels are involuntary. We cannot really start them or stop them simply by wanting to do so. Smooth muscles or involuntary muscles control such movements, which are not in our conscious will. They are also found in the iris of the eye, in ureters, and in the bronchi of lungs. The cells are long with pointed ends, spindle-shaped, and uninucleated. They are also called unstriated muscles because they are not showing any alternate dark and light bands. The muscles of the heart show rhythmic contraction and relaxation throughout the life. These involuntary muscles are called cardiac muscles. Heart muscles are cylindrical, branched, and uninucleated. The next type of human tissue we are going to discuss is connective tissue. Blood is a type of connective tissue. Why would it be called connective tissue? A clue is provided in the introduction. Now let us look at this type of tissue in some more detail. The cells of connective tissues are loosely spaced and embedded in an intracellular matrix. The matrix may be jelly-like, fluid, dense, or rigid. The nature of matrix differs in concordance with the function of the particular connective tissue. Blood has a fluid matrix called plasma, in which RBC, WBC, and platelets are suspended. The plasma contains proteins, salts, and hormones. Blood flows and transports gases, digested food, hormones, and waste materials to different parts of the body. Bone is another example of a connective tissue. It forms the framework that supports the body. It also anchors the muscles and supports the main organs of the body. It is a strong and non-flexible tissue. Bone cells are embedded in the hard matrix that is composed of calcium and phosphorus compounds. Two bones can be connected to each other by another type of connective tissue called the ligament. This tissue is very elastic. It has considerable strength. Ligaments contain very little matrix and connect bones with bones. Tendons connect muscle to bone and are another type of connective tissue. Tendons are fibrous tissue with great strength and limited flexibility. Another type of connective tissue, cartilage, has widely spaced cells. The solid matrix is composed of proteins and sugars. Cartilage smoothens bone surfaces at joints and is also present in the nose, ear, trachea and larynx. We can fold the cartilage of the ear, but we cannot bend the bones in our arms. Areolar connective tissue is found between the skin and muscles, around blood vessels and nerves, and in the bone marrow. It fills the space inside the organs, supports internal organs, and helps in repair of tissues. Where are fats stored in our body? Fat storing adipose tissue is found below the skin and between the internal organs. The cells of these tissues are filled with fat globules. Storage of fat also lets it act as an insulator. The next type of tissue is nervous tissue. All cells possesses the ability to respond to stimuli. However, cells of the nervous tissue are highly specialized for being stimulated and then transmitting the stimulus very rapidly from one place to another within the body. The brain, spinal cord and the nerves are all composed of nervous tissue. The cells of this tissue are called nerve cells or neurons. A neuron consists of a cell body with a nucleus and cytoplasm, from which long thin-like hair structures arise. Usually each neuron has a single long part or process called the axon and many short branched parts called dendrons. An individual nerve cell may be made up of a meter long. Many nerve fibers bound together by connective tissue make up a nerve. The signal that passes along the nerve fiber is called a nerve impulse. Nerve impulses allow us to move our muscles when we want to. The functional combination of nerve and muscle tissue is fundamental to most animals. This combination enables animal to move rapidly in response to stimuli. Here we are done with this chapter. Try to understand all these concepts clearly. I'll be here soon. Have a nice day.